What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video. This one, though, for the final round of the Rugby World Cup warm-up games. The World Cup's nearly upon us. I'm getting super excited for it. If you're excited, make sure you hit that like button because we are getting closer and closer to the World Cup. This one's going to be between the All Blacks and the Springboks playing once again. We saw this played in the Rugby Championship. We get to see it again. It's actually happening this Friday. We're not even having a weekend game. It's on Friday. This game being played in Twickenham on neutral ground. So it's going to be a very exciting game. But I imagine whether you're an All Black supporter or a Springbok supporter, the biggest concern about this game, injuries. My God, what a big game this is to have just a couple of weeks out from the World Cup. I think everyone needs to be playing touch rugby, almost. We don't even need to play a real game of rugby. Man, there could be some key injuries here for both sides that could really, really damage their chances at getting to that World Cup final. So we're going to have a run through of the teams that have been announced for both sides going to be playing in this game, some thoughts on the teams itself, some thoughts on what we think might be happening in this game, and then finally, of course, giving that all-important score prediction. If you enjoy this style of video, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel. Help support the small rugby channels on YouTube, because as we go on through the World Cup, there's going to be a bunch of videos that you guys won't want to miss. So this one then, New Zealand versus South Africa. This is a game, of course, we saw in that Rugby Championship. New Zealand at home, they took that game 35 points to 20. I made myself a little note there just trying to remember the actual score. New Zealand looked good in that one, and as far as I'm aware, they played that game and then they finished on the Rugby Championship. They played Bledisloe 2 against Australia with their sort of B team New Zealand. It's hard to have a B team in New Zealand. It's still a really good New Zealand team. They just about managed to beat Australia by coming back in that Bledisloe 2 game, and we haven't seen them played since. Whereas all these other teams have been playing all these warm-up games, so it feels like a little bit of a while since we've seen the New Zealand team. Meanwhile, South Africa are out there having an okay game in the Principality. We don't need to dive into it too much, and that's got nothing to do with me being a Wales supporter. So, starting out then with the New Zealand team, this was a bigger team than you'll get to see in that Bledisloe 2 match. This is more in line with what we got to see in their last game versus the Springboks. So, Ethan de Groot, Dane Coles, and Tyrell Lomax. That's a pretty solid front row. Now, the Springboks last week against Wales, all joking aside, smashed the set piece. They were doing extremely well when it came to the scrummaging and the mauls. The lineouts Wales actually got a little bit better in, but South Africa's still going to compete hard at the lineouts as well. So the scrummaging and mauls are two big areas that New Zealand will want to try and dominate in this game. Springboks running very high at the minute in terms of momentum. In the lock department then, Sam Whitelock goes in alongside of Scott Barrett. And I see Sam Whitelock's going to have that full run out. Of course, he came back from that injury. He was playing the sort of half and half game. Scott Barrett's been doing very well in that lock department. Can move back to flank if you need him to, but this is a decent partnership in the lock department. In that back row, Luke Jacobson goes in the blindside flanker, Sam Cane as captain in the open side flanker, and Ardie Sarvey in that number 8 shirt. Now this is more in line with what I'm expecting when you think of like the top tier All Black side. This is pretty much what you would expect. Maybe I would still be having someone like Frizzell on ahead of Luke Jacobson, but other than that, that's pretty much what I think you'd probably be expecting from a big game when it gets round to the World Cup in terms of a New Zealand 1 through 8. In the halfback partnership, Aaron Smith goes in alongside of Richie Mo'unga. This is my preferred partnership at the minute. I think having Mo'unga in at 10, Aaron Smith's the best 9 for me in New Zealand by far, but Mo'unga at 10, Jordie Barrett at 12, Beauden Barrett at 15. We saw it work in the Rugby Championship so well. I think they've got that nailed down now. I can imagine that is what we will see. Going up against France in that opening game of the World Cup, it'll probably be what we see for the Italy game. Maybe they'll drop it for some of the the tier 2 teams that we come against in the pool. But I imagine quarterfinals onwards, as long as everyone's fit and healthy, that will probably be the set for this New Zealand team. In the centre partnership, Jordie Barrett there alongside of Rieko Ioane. Again, a centre partnership that's working extremely well. I like what both these lads bring. I've been so impressed by Jordie Barrett sliding into that 12 position last year and just playing well every game. I don't think I've had one game yet where I've seen Jordie Barrett in that inside centre where I think he's had a bad game. I think he's doing extremely well. And then finally in that back three, Mark Talea goes in on the left wing, Will Jordan on the right wing, and Beauden Barrett in that fullback shirt. So very, very dangerous wingers in this game. There was so much talk over that Rugby Championship about Caleb Clark getting in and stuff. Mark Talea and Will Jordan for me are your two boys. That's who you want there. The way they use Will Jordan in the Rugby Championship, using him almost like a secondary fullback as well was such a nice move, rather than just having him sat out on the wing, which we've seen in the past. He sat out on the wing and New Zealand don't utilize him. They kept bringing him back inside. They were using him as an extra threat, getting him involved, getting him have some kicks over the top. He was just running dangerous lines alongside other people. Worked really nicely for him, so I can imagine we would see more of it in this game. So a solid New Zealand team. They're not messing about. There was maybe a chance. Maybe this game is sort of, a bit of a money spinner for both sides. Maybe they would think about, let's just chuck on a B team to avoid any injuries. They've said, no, we've gone down the full line there. They want to put the big boys out, get them that experience in, because they haven't played since the 5th of August. These lads need to have some game time, but man, I'd be so worried about injury concerns for me. In terms of the replacements then, we have Taukei'aho goes in alongside of Tamaiti Williams and Fletcher Newell. Looking forward to see a bit more from the young lad of Tamaiti Williams. He's an absolutely massive unit for such a young lad, but I'm looking forward to see more of him when he gets into this World Cup as well. I think he's got a lot of promise in this New Zealand team. Rest of the replacement forwards then, Josh Lord goes in alongside of Tupou Vai and Dalton Papali'i. So 6-2. What would you expect? I mean, it has to be a 6-2, right? They no doubt will have seen that game by the Springboks last week and how dominant they were in that forward pack. They know South Africa are probably going to go for exactly that same style again. You have the forwards that can win you the penalties. Why wouldn't they go through it? And then you unleash the backs to really make a mess of your defence. So 6-2 is what New Zealand have gone for. Think that's absolutely the right call. And some big lads to bring on from the bench there. Tupou Vai and Dalton Papali'i. I think they're two really big calls to come on in that second half as well. Papali'i, we've seen him as well, has a great burst of speed on him for a flanker. He can run very quick. He's good on someone's shoulder, but also good in that breakdown. Maybe when players are getting a bit tired in that second half and the room begins to open up, he's someone that can exploit it. I think that's a nice move. And then in the replacement backs, Cam Roygaard goes in alongside of Anton Linnett-Brown, who I imagine will come on at centre. I always sort of say this when I say about the New Zealand team. I love the interchangeability, because, of course, Anton Linnett-Brown, for me, is going to come on in that centre position. But you can move everyone around, right? Geordie Barrett can move to the wing. You can move to fullback. You can chuck Will Jordan at fullback, move Geordie Barrett onto the wing. Like, there's so much interchangeability in the New Zealand team. You can get away with doing this 6-2 much, much easier. One of the only things I think maybe New Zealand are even missing at this point is to have sort of like what France have with Makalu, where you have a forward who can be chucked out on the wing if you need him to. But, to be honest, I imagine most of the back rowers for this New Zealand team, you chuck them out on a wing, I don't think they're really going to care. Artie Salvaire on the wing may not have, necessarily the most pace in the world, but man, I wouldn't want to tackle him out on that wing. I think there's really good coverage. I think this is a really, really solid team. But again, fingers crossed for those injury concerns. As a neutral, I look forward to this game, but man, you do not want to be losing key players in this game. Moving on then to South Africa, who I've had to go make a graphic quickly because I couldn't get any cool graphics from them. But last week, yes, had a massive game against Wales. 8 tries to 1, put 50 points over a Warren Gatland Wales team, which whether it's a first team or a second team is still an achievement. Warren Gatland's so well known for that Wales team having solid defence, not really conceding a lot, not always for scoring a lot themselves, but not really conceding a lot. Putting 50 points on the scoreboard against that team is, still a massive achievement. And so many players really, really putting their hands up. Kane and Moody last week had a phenomenal game. I was really, really impressed by him. Pieter-Steph du Toit getting his little interception run, smashing his way up. He's getting on now for a few years in his age, but he's certainly got some good pace to burn there. Got some great vision of the game as well. So many players performing really, really well in that set piece. Yeah, pretty monstrous from South Africa. So looking ahead to this team then, they've put out the big units again. There is actually some changes from that Wales game, which you tend to expect, right? It was a bit more in line B team Wales versus pretty much top tier New Zealand. You'd expect you want, the absolute, big starters on. But there are a couple of interesting calls here, which I look forward to talking about when we get to them. So starting off in the front row, Stephen Kitchoff, Malcolm Marx and Frans Malherbe. So this is the same front row we got to see last week, who were performing so well at that scrum time and in the mauls, just making an absolute nuisance of themselves for Wales. Malcolm Marx, again, for me, in the breakdown zone, just ripping the ball out of every single person's hands. I really think Malcolm Marx is up there for best hooker in the world right now. I think he's phenomenal, and I think he's still, performing at a really high level. So nice to be seeing talented players at top talent just before we get into this World Cup as well. In the lock department, Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert will come on as the lock department for the start of this week. Compared to last week, of course, we had Jean Klein and Sneeman. But Eben Etzebeth, you've got a big number of caps. He's a big old unit. Get involved with that lock department. He's played New Zealand plenty of times. He'll be coming up against some players he knows how tough that line-out battle will be. Again, the set piece for South Africa is a huge area that they love to dominate and launch attacks from. The line-out is maybe the one area that could be super contestable because New Zealand also have really good jumpers compared to Wales. It'll be an area just that they didn't really get to test that much last week against Wales. I'm looking forward to see how they get on in the lock department. In the back row, Siya Kolisi retains in as captain. Pieter-Steph du Toit, who I've already mentioned, who had a fantastic game last week. And finally, Duane Vermeulen coming in the number 8 shirt instead of Jasper Wiese from last week. So Siya Kolisi last week, playing against Wales, did exactly what I expected. I expected him to come on, explode in that first half, take him on at the end of the first half. All the various medical, checkups that you need to do just to make sure he's fit and well. And what a half he had. Came on, got his 1 try assist right at the start of that game. And I thought he played really well throughout that game, even though he wasn't on for, an enormous amount of minutes. But keeping him safe, keeping him without injury, just getting him time back on the field to make sure he's going into that World Cup warm is a great move. Again, injury concerns for him. Might not be surprised if we see a similar thing against New Zealand. Maybe plays that first half, take him off in that second half just to make sure he's, absolutely fit and healthy getting into that World Cup. In the halfback partnership, Faf de Klerk goes in alongside of Marnie Libbok. Now, Libbok last week, in terms of running around with the ball in hand and choosing your passes and doing some little chip kicks and making a bit of a nuisance for himself, phenomenal. I think he's such a good fly half in the way he plays and the way he can organise a game. The kicking is a concern. Now, it doesn't matter that much when you're up by 50 points against Wales. Okay, you missed a kick. Oh, no, you'd lose another 2 points. A bigger team where penalties, drop goals, conversions can sometimes be the winning factor between winning a game or losing a game. Those 2-3 points can come into it. Kicking is a real concern at the minute for South Africa. I was very surprised last week after Libbok missed 2 or 3 that they didn't swap to Cheslin Colby and let Colby have a few kicks, but I also wondered if Colby picked up a bit of an injury in one of those tackles where he sort of twisted his back. So maybe sticking Libbok on as well just to get him more used to long-range kicking, pressure kicking at the international stage. Kicking might be a bit of a concern. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and get the most out of this game as well with penalties, take the 3. Again, get that experience in before you get to the World Cup where it really matters to be landing those 3 points. In the centre partnership, Andre Esterhuizen goes in alongside of Canan Moodie. And, oh boy, this guy can play centre as well, can he? He's not only amazing on the wing. Now, this team got announced on Monday. They announced it super early. And I didn't really know anything about Canan Moodie. I have no idea if he could play centre. I did read a couple of comments on Twitter and stuff. People saying when he was younger, he used to play centre. Now, he's younger than me. So I don't know what that means when he was younger still. When he was about 8 years old, he was probably playing centre at an international stage. Who knows? I'm going to have to keep an eye out for how he does in the centre position. But having seen him play on that wing against Wales, and on a number of occasions he was further infield than he probably would have liked to have been, cutting inside, shutting down Wales' attack. In terms of defence, read it really well, and got that 1 try where he absolutely cut through the middle of 2 people, ripped the ball out of his hands and went exactly kind of what you want to see from a centre. So I'm expecting him to be pretty good, but it's going to be a tough old centre partnership to go up against with Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane. So I look forward to see how he gets on there. And then finally in the back 3, Mapimpi, Kurt-Lee Arendse and Damien Willemse in that fullback position. So Mapimpi getting another shot in. In all honesty, people might get a bit annoyed by this. In terms of your wingers for South Africa, I would probably be looking to start Moodie ahead of Mapimpi. I've been so impressed by him. I'm still not sure, maybe Arendse and Colby offer so much in terms of the wing and what they can do under the high ball and the step inside and stuff, but they are quite similar players in the way they play. But I think Canan Moodie's a completely different sort of entity for this team, and I might be looking, if I was in charge of the team, which I'm not, to be actually starting him. So maybe this is a test to see if you can play Mapimpi on one wing and Moodie in centre. You almost get 3 wingers at any given time. So this might work for them. This works being a centre partnership they can rely on. Jesse Creel also having a great game against Wales, and I think he can do centre and wing as well, right? So, man, the depth in the South Africa team is really, beginning to peak just in time as we get to this World Cup. So I'm looking forward to see how this team gets on. In the replacements then, we have Mbonambi goes in alongside of Oxenshea and Trevor Nyakane, that bomb squad that South Africa love to bring on in that second half just to keep the dominance up in the set piece. In the replacement forwards alongside them, we have Jean Klein, Snyman and Marco van Staden also going for the 6-2. what else would we expect going up against New Zealand? This is going to be a big battle of the forwards trying to dominate that set piece to give you the best platform to really get your attack going from. And then the replacement backs of Cobus Reinach and Willy Leroux. So overall, a really solid South Africa team as well. I can imagine this is going to be a really big forwards game. Both teams will want to unleash the backs, but I think with injury concerns, having massive tackles and massive hits and getting your head on the wrong side, and we've seen it at the minute with England, all the red cards going in, just getting those tackles wrong. They may want to just keep this game between the forwards and just go trundling through the forwards, get a couple jackal penalties, and actually keep all your wingers and your fly halves safe. But both teams have such capable backs in terms of attacking. It could open up to be a truly phenomenal game. The New Zealand team's looking extremely good. They've also got a much more reliable kicker than South Africa for this one. So when we think about the score prediction, what do we think for this one? Now, New Zealand took this one by, a decent chunk when we saw this in the Rugby Championship, but South Africa have been playing their warm-up games. They're warmer going into this one than New Zealand, who this team playing this week really hasn't played since before Bledisloe 2. It's probably Bledisloe 1 was the last time a team like this was playing for New Zealand, so it's going to be a big ask to get straight in and take on this South Africa team. They're also playing in neutral ground of Twickenham on Friday, so you haven't got any sort of home advantage there. It is a massive, massive game. I'm still tempted to lean towards New Zealand. I've got a feeling kicking might really be one of the crucial elements to this one. I don't think we'll see a scoreline like we did in the Rugby Championship. I can imagine this one coming down to 2, 3, 4 points either way. I'm going to say a New Zealand win, and I'm going to say by 3. I just think having the more reliable kickers of Mwanga or either of the Barrett brothers to step in if you really need to might just see out this game, and they might just take those 3 points as they come and just keep ticking that scoreboard over. But there we have it, guys. That's going to be my score prediction for this one. Make sure you drop down in the comment section what you think of the teams, along with your own score predictions. Make sure you're getting them up on the Super Brew for the final round of the warm-ups before we get to the World Cup. It's getting so exciting. I hope you've all enjoyed this one today, guys. We'll be having more previews coming out over the next few days because there's a big weekend of rugby coming out. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.